oh, and then this person, and you're like, oh, I did not want that public. And welcome everyone to another exciting adventure on Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael, and tonight's guest I met on LinkedIn, and she posts the most incredible information with the most amazing thumbnails. I don't know how she does it. They're so cool. They pull you right in, and so I saw those and I was like, I need to have her on the show. And I was so grateful that she accepted my invitation. And so I could share with you her bio, but I think I would be here all day trying to figure out what her bio actually says, because she is in a field I am not 100% familiar with. So you all are in for a treat, because we are going to learn this together. And so I am honored and blessed to hand over the show to my amazing guest, the one, the only EXO extraordinaire, Rebecca Hardcastle Wright.
Thanks, Michael. Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to meet, to be with you today. I'm coming from Phoenix, Arizona. I live in Phoenix, and that's where I'm talking from today. And I really appreciate Michael inviting me to come and share with you about my work. My work primarily involves a concept called exoconsciousness, but he asked me to do a little bit of a bio. So I'm an experiencer. I'm what's called a childhood experiencer. So many of my experiences began around 3 years old. In terms of my memory, I have vivid memories. I grew up in a small city, really small town, small city, Clarksburg, West Virginia, in the mountains. Lots of miners, lots of underground activity going on. And ironically, as a child, I simultaneously was pulled under the ground and visited under the ground as a child, as well as in the craft. And I knew intuitively that the two realms were connected, that when I was underground and in the craft, that those two, that was a seamless connection in my consciousness and in my mind. And as you know, growing up, there wasn't a lot of talk about it, but West Virginia is very, Scotch Irish, a lot of psychic people. So some people in my family were very psychic. So that kind of came naturally. Miners are often psychic, things under the ground and, exploring what's going on there and that sort of thing. So really it was in the mid 90s as a young adult when I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. And well, the stop in between there was kind of interesting. I'll just go into that really quickly, because I went from West Virginia to Dayton, Ohio. And my father was a minister in a German-speaking church. So only as an adult did I realize that I knew there were a lot of engineers in the church and a lot of scientists. So only as I became an adult and I started looking into paperclip, did I understand that I probably knew some paperclip people or families of paperclip people or at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And then I worked for 15 years as an interfaith chaplain, actually at Wright State University, right next door to Wright-Patterson. I knew some of the people at Wright-Patterson, actually some of the high up people on Wright-Patterson, just by, I don't know how that happens. You just get plopped places, I guess. No, I know you just get plopped places, like here, you will live here. And then I ended up in Phoenix, and really in Phoenix was the first time in my life where I was able, I moved to this little town outside of Phoenix called Fountain Hills. They used to have the UFO international conferences there. Maybe some of your people have been to the UFO international conferences out in Fountain Hills in Arizona, outside of Phoenix. And I moved there, and right away someone said to me, "Oh, you need to meet Ruth Hover." And I'd only been there like a week or so, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I met this woman, Ruth Hover, and she, when she passed away, she had been running the longest running experiencer group in the nation at that time. She worked with John Mack at Harvard. She worked with Leo Sprinkle. And once again, I just kind of got, well, that's where you will be. And so I got to talk about my experience then in the mid 90s. And then I actually taught one of the first UFO classes in the nation in 2005. I put all my work together. And about that same time, I was downloaded with the concept of exoconsciousness, which is the innate. So I believe every human has exoconsciousness. So we, as humans, we have the innate ability to connect, communicate, and co-create with extraterrestrials, multidimensionals, and spiritual beings. So we all have this psychic gear inside of us that we can utilize if we choose to or not. And so I began to write and speak about that. And then around, it must have been like 2008, 2009, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, called me and asked me if I would come to work with him on his 0-point energy work. And my husband just happened to have grown up in Washington, D.C., so he was amenable to moving to Washington, D.C. to help Edgar to be the Washington, D.C. representative for what he called Quantrek, which was, we worked on 0-point energy, human consciousness, and the extraterrestrial presence. So sort of the binding together that trinity, and worked with politicians and scientists and people and really all over the world in that, with that concept. So after he passed away, I moved back to Phoenix and I established the Institute for Exoconsciousness, which I'm working in today, as Michael noted. Some of the things we do at the Institute is we put together a planetary constitution for, as we call, visionary governance. Vision meaning psychic governance. We have a plasma study course that we put together. And I also do a lot of one-on-one and group coaching for people that have had anomalous experiences and want to help sort of integrate that and make sense out of what actually happened to them so they can integrate that into their life. So that's where I am today.
That's amazing. And I'm wondering, with all that you had going on when you were like 3, if that was all designed to create, your mindset for being tapped by Edgar Mitchell to be doing the Institute for Exoconsciousness. And what was it like, growing up, having those experiences at 3? Did you have a lot of people you could talk to about it, or were you like...
No, I was on my own. No, there was no talking about it. I knew I had a grandmother that was very psychic, and I know that my dad's family, like up in the hills of West Virginia, were like herbalists and healers of the community. So I knew I came from that lineage. But yeah, absolutely, all the threads that came together. So Wright-Patterson Air Force Base was one of the primary places where the German scientists Nazi Germany were pulled in to put together the space program. So the German scientists came in to run our space program. To a great extent, they ran our pharmaceutical program. They ran they ran our intelligence program, certainly. So to be there in Dayton and be part of that German community of German scientists. Did I consciously know what was going on? No, but I kind of sensed something was going on. So Wright-Patterson was where they did a lot of research and development, and there's talk of Roswell craft being brought back to Hangar 18 at Wright-Patterson, and a lot of Black projects being launched out of. So there's two big research labs. So there's a Naval Research Lab that's in Washington, D.C., and then there's Wright-Patterson Research and Development Lab for the Air Force. So these development labs were, filled with scientists that were doing cutting edge work, much of it which we will probably never know, because anything that falls under national security, it's very difficult to get any kind of access to it. So it was really up to me to start to put the pieces together about who I was and what happened. And then also when I worked with Edgar, it was not only about 0 point energy, advanced science, much of it German science, because what Hitler did was he released all the scientists. So they didn't really have to sort of go along with the Nazi political movement. They could do whatever they wanted to do. He more valued them as scientists and creators. So we got our group of scientists from Germany. We brought them over, and we kind of got the creme de la creme of the scientists. And then Russia got a lot of the sort of bureaucratic scientists, I guess I would say, the people that really knew how to manage the programs. And then, of course, many of them went down to South America, different places. I've heard maybe even up into Canada, British Columbia, that sort of thing. Who knows? But the minute I started reading about Project Paperclip, I'm like, well, that was interesting. My father's passed away, though, so I never really, but I always knew there were people in his church who were inventing things all the time. So the biggest club in Dayton was the Engineers Club. That was kind of and also the Wright brothers, the Wright brothers were there. A lot of the stepladder was invented there, the parachute. I mean, I think a lot of things were invented there that we'll probably never know about because they're kind of on the down low.
Right. And I wonder, like 0 point energy. Does the government, in your opinion, kind of like walk in and be like, hey, you're going to share this with us, and if you don't, we're going to slap a nice little label of national security on it so you can't disclose it either? And they kind of use it to kind of manipulate and keep suppressed a lot of information.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of it's done just legally through kind of going in and inviting someone who they realize is intelligent and has a lot of knowledge, and they'll bring them into these different groups. And then as they're there and they'll invent things, then the government takes the patent and owns the patent. Either the government owns it or the university owns it. I mean, we all saw that in COVID with all the COVID vaccine patents that went out. It was the same. They do the same thing always. But it's always been my contention that you can classify and hide scientific knowledge only for so long, and the humans have the capacity to obtain it either through downloads or just having a desire to learn. That's really why I founded the plasma course. We're just teaching each other about plasma, and so we all have that ability to learn and to share knowledge, and you can't keep a lid on it forever. I think there is there is a bigger issue at play here, and that's certainly monetization, like Tesla. How do you monetize Tesla energy? It's certainly not the Tesla car, but how do you monetize Tesla
Right.
energy? How do you meter it? Electricity's metered. How do you meter 0 point energy? And that was one thing that Edgar always really believed in, was that it had the capacity as an energy product to really to be something that could energize safely a lot of human life across the globe with an energy. But I think plasma now is part of 0 point energy. That's why we're studying it.
And it's interesting because when I think about it, when you first say plasma, first thing I always think about is, well, they separate it from our blood. That's plasma. And so honestly, when you were like saying, yeah, we do plasma science, I'm like, what are you doing with the blood? And, what kind of science is, because I know there's a reason we sort the plasma out from the blood, but they never say what they do with the plasma. And so I'm like, is this what she's talking about? And then it was like, as we were talking about it before we got started, I was like, nope, that's not what we're talking about. Good, because I was like, I was getting a little creepy feeling, going, what are we talking about blood for? But it's also interesting because the body is magnetic or electromagnetic, I believe, depending on the gender. And so could that be why there is plasma actually in the blood, is because it's an offshoot of that energy?
Well, I think, well, first of all, I don't know if your audience is familiar with anthroposophy. Rudolf Steiner, he always talked a lot about the importance of blood in terms of metaphysics, esoterics. I think we're just beginning. We're just at the very beginning. So just to give a little recap, plasma was always a science. It was called the ethers, AETHERS. So it's the ethers, called the ethers. It was part of nature, was the ethers, and the philosophers and the theologians talked about the ethers. A lot of it was connected to God and transcendence, and this kind of ability to self-assemble that theologians and philosophers saw as a characteristic of life. So today, when we talk about plasma, it's really, so we're atomic. We're made up of atoms. We're material atomic beings, and that's how we think of ourselves. But in actuality, 99% of the universe is plasma. So what plasma is, so there's, I think plasma is really the first state of matter. So solid, liquid, gas, plasma. Probably should read plasma, gas, liquid, solid, because 99% of the universe is plasma. So what plasma is basically is that it's an atom where the electrons have been freed. So they've been freed up to move out of the atom, to be freed up into this gaseous state. And that's what, then electromagnetics comes into play, and it gets all very scientific that we don't need to go into tonight, though. But we're also finding that our bodies have a plasma potential to them. And we could call that our light body. We could call that our divine self. But also people, when they're during conception, sometimes people see a light come on during conception that kind of indicates a plasma light. Also, the whole the light that comes at death, the death light that comes, is also related to plasma. So it's related to conception, it's related to human birth, it's related to our physical body. And it's just I think it's probably the most important science that's there right now. but it's only taught in just a few select handful of universities at this point. So what I think has happened to it was, so for example, Avi Loeb that did 3I Atlas, Avi Loeb that did 3I Atlas and the asteroid, he came out of a very select kind of curriculum in Israel called the Talpoint program. And that was a program where you were kind of like the gifted program here in America. It's also called we have a similar program in America called the Jason program. And I work with some of the Jason scientists when I work with Edgar. So you're sort of pulled out of the normal university curriculum and you're put into another type of curriculum. So Avi Loeb got a PhD in plasma science, but he never talks about it, which is very interesting. And some of the missing scientists were also, and especially the MIT physicist, he was a plasma scientist. So there's a lot of technology being developed in terms of fusion, Fusion, fusion technology that uses plasma. Also, plasma has a lot to do with orbs. So the orbs that we're seeing now could be a plasma creation. Crop circles also have a plasma element to them. So I think also propulsion, plasma. So when you talk about going to Mars, one of the things that that you read about is there's the plasma rocketry to take us to Mars. But plasma was also something that the Nazi, heard of the Nazi bell?
Right.
The Nazi bell. So the Nazi bell, right? Anti-gravitic. That was plasma. That was a plasma craft.
Yeah, and it's so strange when you think about it to go, we're trying to figure out today, and people think, oh, this is new tech. We're making great strides in new tech. That this was actually, from what I understand, was actually developed in the 40s. The Germans actually did make one, but I don't know if somehow, it was like maybe at the end of the war and they were like never got to use it, or they were using it and we just don't know that they were using it.
Yeah, I think it probably was used. I think Joseph Farrell is the best scholar. Joseph P. Farrell is probably the best scholar on, he's got these books called Nazi International and, the Nazi Bell. And he's an excellent German historian in terms of that energy and that technology.
Yeah, but I have an interesting question for you, and I don't know if this is in line of what we're talking about or not, but as we're talking about, like, the body has plasma energy in it, and so, like the Matrix movie was saying, we're like a battery. We can power, something with our bodies. Whenever I put a watch on my wrist, whether it's a light battery, a regular battery, or kinetic battery, they all fail. I cannot wear a watch on my wrist, and I'm wondering if it's because the plasma's too high.
That could be. That could well be, or the electrical charge. So we're all charged beings. We run around and charge things on our credit card, not realizing that we also are charged. And so I think we're just really at the cusp in terms. I remember when that movie came out, What the Bleep, and yes. Everybody was quantum science, and everybody was really excited about that. And I learned a lot about quantum science at that point, and it does. Quantum science and plasma do interrelate, but I think we're kind of at the what the bleep moment with plasma science. The leading person in that, I think, that's really done the most in terms of bringing plasma mainstream is an English author named Robert Temple, who wrote A New Science of Heaven. So that's his plasma book goes into who we are as plasma biological entities, that we are plasma. And what does that mean? How does that mean? I think we're just at the cusp of learning about that. But a lot of these Black programs, that are using plasma technology for, the Golden Dome or weapons in space, or, craft that are plasma craft that I'm sure we have. Eventually, humans get it. Eventually, you can't keep us. Well, you can try through algorithms or mind control, but this thing of separating out human knowledge from the science that's being aimed at them, I think that breaks down after a while, and humans get on board really quickly.
Right. Like an example of that is the internet. We all think, oh, it came out in the 80s and 90s, and we had this new communication network, and few people realize. Well, actually, let me restate that. Few people did realize where it originated from, but majority are like, oh, we got this new technology. How great is it? We can talk to people on the other side of the world now and get real time answers to stuff. And it was around for probably 4 or 5 decades, being used by the government and military,
Oh, for sure.
and
Yeah.
finally was released to the public. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
It's the same idea for sure. Yeah. Well, Hitler had a second generation computer.
I
You
hadn't
think he
heard
wasn't
that.
sending messages? And I know for a fact that in the military, in the 70s, they had instant messages all over the world with each other.
Well, they would have to,
Yeah.
because they're doing precision type missions. You can't be sitting there going, okay, did we get the notice from the guy that he said he mailed a week ago so we could, know what's going on today? It's like, it
Yeah.
doesn't work. And so,
Well,
yeah.
actually, there's really interesting information about Roman generals that were like up in Brittany, and at the time that knew historians were recording that they knew what was going on in different parts of Europe. Now, how did they know that? Were they sending some kind of frequency messages through drums, or um, people that were skilled at picking up a frequency or an electromagnetic charge? I
Yeah.
mean, maybe. I mean, look at the oracles of Delphi and places like that. I mean,
Yeah.
people were, picking up messages and transmitting messages a lot more than, we'll ever probably be told what's going on. A lot of this is just ancient knowledge that's been just not really brought to light.
Well, and look at Tesla. I mean, they say, his story, he claims he was in Europe and sat on a hill and watched lightning just go bizarre patterns. And all of a sudden, he's like, hey, I now know how to do this, and I'm going to go do it. And it's like, was there something charged in the air because of all the lightning there
Well, ball
that
lightning
he
is
picked in?
plasma. Ball lightning's plasma.
Right.
So he could have
And
been
so,
charged.
yeah. And so, but it's interesting because lightning was what sparked him into creating AC current, which
Mhm,
we now use finally, even though he never gets credited to it.
mhm.
It is his invention. And I mean, and it's funny how the government will go to lengths to erase the inventor of stuff. So we never know who did it, but we use things and we never know who did it. And we're just like, okay, yeah, we live in a world that's like, you know, I don't care who invented it. I'm just glad we have it. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure the inventor, is, thrilled to pieces.
Well, you know,
that
it's
he's.
interesting that you bring that up because is that really any different from what's happening with AI when they go out and scrape all the knowledge up? It's the same thing.
I agree, and I'm a little wary on it. I will use it to like generate pictures,
Mhm.
but I don't like to ask it questions, and because every once in a while a friend gave me a what he called a really good AI program, and I'll just type my name in and it like shows all these things that I'm accredited to, and I'm like, and it's like it knows stuff that I'm just now working on. It's like, oh, and he's doing. I'm like, how do
Scraping,
you know this?
24/7 scraping.
Yeah, it's
But it's
like,
also 24/7 making mistakes, which nobody ever talks about.
oh, I know. I was laughing on an interview when a lady was told me, oh, your intro will be a part of, your bio is a part of the intro, and I'll add it later. And I was like, okay. And when I went back and heard it, I was accredited to creating a show I never created
Well,
because
you
Chat
have created a lot of
GPT.
shows, Michael.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I was laughing about that, and I was like, oh my god, I need to correct this. And so my very next interview, I was like, yeah, and I, I I feel like I need to ask people if they're using ChatGPT to preview before making it public because this happened, and I don't want to get in trouble for stating something I didn't state that it's AI is stating, and I'm like, why is AI wanting to get me in trouble anyway?
Well, I was at a conference about a year ago, and I was sitting next to a man that he was kind of he was bi-coastal, one of these bi-coastal guys. So he was working for the Fed in Washington D.C., and he was also working in Silicon Valley as I guess, like a private investor or investment banker or whatever. And we were talking, and I just said to him, I said, "Oh, how's AI changed your work?" And he goes, well, I hire less people, but, financially it makes a lot of mistakes. And I said, oh, how many mistakes does it make? He goes, oh, we're looking at about 33% mistakes. And I said, oh, that's a lot of mistakes. And I
Yeah.
said, well, what's going to happen when it scales up? So scales up, it brings in more and more data. It's more and more powerful, more and more data centers, all of that, scaling up the amount of data that it's bringing in. He goes, I said, is it going to get better? And he goes, oh, no, it's going to get worse. It's just going to be more mistakes. He goes, we're really probably tracking about 66% mistakes. I'm like 66. So now I call it AI janitorial work. So all these people
Yeah.
now are involved in AI janitorial work, and nothing that's wrong. I don't want to say anything about being a janitor because, quite frankly, I had a job one summer as a maid and a janitor. So nothing against janitors, but to think that you're going to have a career today, and then your career ends up in AI janitorial services, just cleaning up the mess, cleaning up the slop. What kind of, it's like, Phoenix has a lot of autonomous vehicles. I don't know. Do you have them where you live? Autonomous vehicles?
No,
Waymos?
and I'm thankful for that.
Oh, we have tons of Waymos. So Waymos are pretty interesting. Google owns Waymo. So Waymo is also being driven by people in the Philippines that can drive, numerous Waymo cars at once, kind of like driving a drone. One of our kids is a drone pilot, so he can drive, 10 or 15 drones at once. And they do the same thing with autonomous vehicles, claiming all this superiority. And there's also people called annotators now, annotators, and those are people that are trained not to use AI. So they have to use their own knowledge or an encyclopedia or a book or whatever. And then their job is to go up and clean up the mistakes that AI made without using AI.
That's kind of funny when you think about AI correcting itself. It's like, is it really
It
going to
doesn't
correct
self-correct. The
itself?
humans are going in and correcting it.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's
it's
what I
all a
mean.
big, it's the biggest op in the world. I don't know. I follow a man on X. His name's Gary Marcus. I like him a lot. He was the guy, I think he invented the code for Uber. So he's really in that world, but he's maintained all along that the large language model it's just not it's not going to work. It's not the model itself, the platform itself isn't something that's going to have any long term. And yet, data center after data center, and now they're all going to public offerings after saying that ChatGPT was going to be a nonprofit. Now it's going to have an IPO. So it's just, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I kind of get and to me, the one thing I think people don't realize, and it's like kind of like I can't help but realize, is AI is based on who programs it. So if somebody with and I don't mean this insulting, but if somebody has just a high school diploma is programming it versus someone who has a college degree that's programming it, or someone who's got street smarts that's programming it, you're going to have different versions
Oh,
of
absolutely.
what AI. And so, how do we know which is the right AI to follow? Because,
Well, a lot of AI developers were gamers. I mean, it kind of came out of that gaming subculture. So a lot of it's gamers, a lot of it's people that kind of were once again modeled to sort of create this artificial reality. I know when I was working with Edgar in Washington D.C., this was about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, really, when it started. But all of a sudden I started, nobody really knew about artificial intelligence. Nobody knew about AI at that point much. And, we were working on the Genome Project at that time. We were working on the Brain Initiative project publicly at that time. And people started dropping this stuff on me about artificial intelligence. And started, me, I just like dug right into it, see what I could find out. And I was just really suddenly just while I was working for Edgar, I was suddenly struck by this reality that was coming head on at me. And I'm a mom, so my children, my grandchildren, like what was coming head on was really an artificial reality that was going to attempt to consume everyone and everything, and it wasn't going to slow down at all. And I got really concerned about what was going to happen to my children and especially my grandchildren. Like, were they going to have, if they got sort of circled by this artificial reality and trusted it, would they have the same psychic interface that I had? Would they have the same access to the field of consciousness that I had? Would they have the same psychic visions and the same psychic knowing that I had? And I began to think possibly not.
yeah,
Possibly not. And that was very terrifying to me.
I would agree that possibly not, because I was always into the new fads, as much as I could be. But admittedly, when virtual reality came out, and I don't think it's a coincidence, it came out around when AI came out too, that I was like, I was averse to it. I was like, I don't want, I don't do any virtual reality gaming. I don't put anything on that alters my vision to creating something that's like an alternate world to immerse myself in, because that's the thing. You're immersed now in it, and it's rewiring the brain. And so
Yes.
that's why when you unplug, people have a hard time adjusting back to the real world. And I'm not even saying we're living in the real world. We're possibly living in a matrix simulation. And so it's like, how, does this really impact us? And I don't think people really know. And I can't help wondering, did they really do their due diligence before allowing the gaming community to bring
No, and
this
heck
out?
no.
Or
No,
are
and
they
heck
like,
no.
well, but part of me feels like they did and they know what it's
Oh,
doing, and
sure.
so
Oh,
they
yeah.
can
I'm sure
control
there were
people.
levels of people that knew. Yeah, I mean, that really a lot of what you're talking about came out of. Have you heard of the Macy Foundation, the Macy conferences?
Yes,
So
I've heard
Tavistock,
reference to them.
yeah. So Tavistock out of World War One, where they were experimenting with all the shell shock soldiers, and um, that experimentation was really to traumatize, learn how to mass traumatize the citizenry with Tavistock, and then that fed into Macy conferences, and the whole cybernetics. So cybernetics is zeros and ones. It's what we know of computers. It's AI is a cybernetic system. So it's a closed loop. So once you're in the closed loop, they knew that if they could capture consciousness, if they could capture minds, if they could capture entertainment, then they could, get humans to buy into it. It's all it was all the use of behavioral psychology,
Yeah,
how far they could push it.
and it's kind of funny because we we feel like this, like, again, we feel this is all new, but I feel like they knew it before. And now I look at the famous broadcast in the 1950s, War of the Worlds, and the hysteria that it caused, and going, how could people who know this is a radio station go into such mass hysteria over a broadcast? And now I think about it and going, I wonder if that was MK Ultra being used in its primary, formation, or what other programs were, and who was, tapping those mics and altering the signals. And it's like, and the scary thing is, this is the 1950s.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how long has this all really been going on? And how, far does that rabbit hole really go? Because it's, once you go down and you start seeing alternative ways that this could exist, it's like there's no end to it. And it's like, it's hard to live in this world because it's like you can't trust what's around you anymore.
Well, I think I totally agree with what you're saying, and that's why, in terms of our exoconsciousness and the people that participate with us, learning psychic discernment is a huge thing. Yeah, and I think what's going to actually happen is the human is going to tap into a lot of their innate abilities. So there's sort of two paths that are being opened here. There's many paths, but let's just say, for sake of talking, two paths. So the one path is we'll get extensions. So we're going to get technological extensions, and we're going to be, that's how we're going to advance as a species. So people will choose that. A lot of gamers will choose that. I'm going to choose a technological extension. And then I think Peter Thiel just had those Olympics recently. I forget, the enhancement Olympics, where he only had people that had technological enhancements and pharmaceutical enhancements to compete, but it was kind of a big flop, which was interesting. But so there will be people that will go, full in on this, as this reality. But I think the large number of humans will say, let's just see what happens. Be kind of discerning about this. I want to protect and preserve my natural human consciousness. That's one of our principles, is preservation of natural human consciousness. And that's really going to serve me much better. I noticed in your bio that you said that you took Reiki to protect yourself. I thought
Yes,
that was cool. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
it is. And, it's interesting too, because it's like I can sense when something's off and something, isn't
For sure.
quite right. And it's coming in handy doing some other extracurricular activities that I do. But one thing I'm kind of curious about, as we're talking about, tapping into this plasma energy and how our bodies, react to it and everything, is we're starting to come aware of like multidimensional beings and star races that are around, but we're not aware of them, so to speak. It's like we don't, open the door and go, "Oh, look, there's a Arcturian, moved in down the street." We're not that aware, but I wonder, as we're unfolding and like you're saying, we're becoming more aware of plasma now, is the reason we're becoming more aware of plasma, we're becoming more aware of these other beings around.
Oh, I think yeah, other dimensions, absolutely. And I think as people become more comfortable with their own, see the if you go back to the Reformation, for example, when the Catholic Church was selling indulgences and saying, you get to heaven if you pay so many indulgences, and the Reformation happened, and Martin Luther put the theses on the church in Germany, and he said that priesthood of all believers. So you didn't need a priest. You could
Right.
just use your own mind and use your own consciousness and use your own divine spirit, and didn't need a priest. So I mean, and then a big fight ensued, and people stole a lot of money. The bankers all came in.
Right.
Typical. We're kind of at that same point right now where AI is saying that you got to pay us to know something. You need to pay us for intelligence. It's like AI indulgences. You got to pay for it, and the humans are saying, there's no Martin Luther, but a lot of humans are saying, me, you, a lot of other people, like, no, no, thank you. Priesthood of all believers. I can make up my own mind. I can stay free of this. I don't have to pay you indulgences for this super intelligence that makes all kinds of slop and mistakes. No, no, thank you. And I think that there'll be a big, financial op that goes with it, of course, tokenization and central bank digital currencies and, stable coins or whatever. A lot of monitoring they'll try to put over. But just like the Reformation, I just really believe that humans are going to like break free of this, because it really never works. They've tried it, and it's another, let's try this now that we have this technology. And I think when cybernetics came in, and the closed loop of cybernetics came in, and the potential of computers came in, they were like, whoa, we got another shot at the indulgences here. Let's just rope them all in. And I think I don't think it's working. I think it was a shiny object for a while, like you said, it's kind of a shiny object for a while, but then humans, and I think humans, if they really want to, as you say, these multidimensional beings coming in, if you really want to be aware, cosmically aware, like an exoconscious human would be cosmically aware, then you probably should be learning plasma, since it's 99% of the universe. Like, that would probably be good science for you to learn about if you want to be an experiencer, you want to be cosmic. So I don't know. I just see these, it's kind of almost like these historical trends that just keep repeating themselves again and again. But I'm happy to be alive right now. I think it's pretty exciting.
Oh, I know, and I always coined, because we now have the term whistleblower. that Shakespeare was the first actual whistleblower.
Yeah.
Because he famously said, may you always live in interesting times. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, he kind of was
Pretty,
telling us what's coming.
yeah, I think it's cool. That's good. Good for you. Yeah, good point. And I think the whole thing is so I have a Substack. My Substack's Rebecca Hardcastle Wright Substack. And one of the things I write about is the mind control that happened to humans during the so when the Soviet Union fell and Eastern Western Germany were united and the Soviet bloc fell. Um, the military became aware that we were moving into not a bipolar world where East West, Russia, United States hate each other and vile enemies. That we were actually moving to what's called a multipolar world, and they all of a sudden realized that a multipolar world where there's quote a lot of threats is a lot more difficult to control than a bipolar world of United States and Russia, or communism and democracy, or however you want to phrase it. So they came up with this thing called VUCA, VUCA. And what it is, it's a mind control program. And now when I talk about it, you're going to begin to see it through all social media. So it's a way to control minds through different behavioral psychology techniques. So the V stands for volatility. So you never know when there's going to be a terror threat. Everything's volatile. You never know when somebody's going to shoot up a street in your town. It's going to be volatile. And so that puts everybody on high alert, a lot of trauma. So that's the V. The U is uncertainty, where people are like, people that are on social media all the time are like, I just don't know what to think anymore. I just don't know what to think. It's just, everything's just uncertain. That's deliberately put into social media to make you feel uncertain. So you doubt yourself. And then the C is complexity. That's a big kahuna. So they'll make everything be much more complex than it should be. Because, there's just layer upon layer upon layer here. And, it's just really complex. And the A is ambiguity. And ambiguity is kind of like uncertainty, but ambiguity is like, it's kind of like life is kind of this liquid thing where you can't really ever get a hold of it. It's just very ambiguous. Like, no, it's not. We're atomic beings. We live in a natural world of nature. Thank you very much, even though much of it's geoengineered. And so that's what they use in social media. And they use it in the news to trap us into feeling that we're human and we can't manage this unless we have AI intelligence. It's just mind control, MK Ultra mind control on a mass scale.
Yeah, and we have a comment in the chat room. Light Salt Fears. I'm sorry, your name is like really long, and it's like the letters are kind of blurring together with the coloring. So I'm hoping I got it mostly right, but she's saying you just said that it is only as smart as the programmer. Therefore, you can't go in with the attitude that everyone thinks it knows everything. Also, why shouldn't the gamers be paid for their work? Well, I don't think we're saying they shouldn't be paid for their work. I think what we're saying is this, we think scientists are doing this work and creating it through other means, and we're just pointing out that no, it's actually the gamers that are driving this, and it's not the source where everybody is saying it's coming from. So I don't think we're saying that gamers shouldn't be paid for their work. We're just saying these are the people who are actually doing the work.
I would say that gamers are being paid quite well, thank you very much, except for the ones that created the AI and now are getting laid off. But that's not us laying them off. That's AI laying them off. So
Yeah, and you know, I wonder at times, like we always say, like Hollywood has is like the disclosure. They're telling us what's coming and everything, and it's the media that they use to get through the free will. They're showing their playbook and their hand, but I can't help but notice lately it's like Hollywood is kind of almost ceased to exist and AI is taking over and running everything. So I'm wondering now when we see movies coming out, I'm like, how do we know actors are really acting in these movies and they're not an AI generated movie being put on the screen?
Have you seen the trailers for Spielberg's Disclosure movie?
I have.
That's all AI. All the car scenes, and it's all AI generated content. And yet that's going to be passed off as disclosure. I think it's, I have to laugh. I studied a lot with a woman named Alana Freeland. Her name's Alana Freeland, and she has written just a lot of definitive books on geoengineering, geoengineering and transhumanism, and just the geoengineering that's gone on here on Earth, and the weather and the chemtrails and CERN and the ionosphere and HARP, all of those different programs, but especially the chemtrails. Like my one granddaughter was out the other day and she came in and she goes, "Can't even get a suntan. Too many chemtrails." I'm like, whoa, whoa. So that generation is really waking up. And who does Steven Spielberg have as the main character in the movie? A weather woman. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? You have a weather woman. It's like, and all of the thumping, pounding music and this hypnotic stare that she develops, and running for their life, and it's just like, really, I mean, it's like VUCA all over again.
Right.
And yeah, Hollywood is huge. I mean, Intel has always, Project Mockingbird, CIA Project Mockingbird. Hollywood's always been used by Intel. Like I know when I lived and worked in DC, I knew Intel people, like they're back and forth to Hollywood all the time. Like, what were they doing there? I'm like, where are you going? We're going to LA. I'm like, I bet you are. So it's just, yeah. So Hollywood's huge. And now, like Contact in the Desert, I guess, is this weekend. And, the big star of Contact in the Desert is this guy named Thomas Jane. What is he? He's an actor. And Intel really likes to recruit actors. That's one of their, probably, they like smart people and they like actors. And so, yeah, they've run disclosures since 2018 with the New York Times, when Harry Reid and the group came out, to the Stars Initiative, Tom DeLonge. So it's same thing all over again.
And I find it only interesting now. It's like when you watch like TikTok and you'll see a video and they're like, oh, here's this cartoon in real life and here's AI, what they would look like now. That now we're being told this is AI, where before it's like we never had to say AI. And when I publish my books now through Amazon, I have to state, did I use AI? Where did I use AI? And it's like, and it's interesting to me because I'm like, how, one, I have to wonder, how does the Amazon know if I say, no, I didn't use AI, but I really did? Will Amazon go, hey, your book has been
You're gonna run it through
flagged?
a program? Yeah, probably
Or,
not.
but it's like, it's interesting to me now that we're living in a world where people put videos out that they make, and some of them look really real, and you're like, hey, this would be a really cool movie. And then you find out they go back and they have to now write a disclaimer on it going, this is AI. And you're like, oh, I can't believe I fell for an AI ad for a movie.
Yeah.
But that's where, looking at that, I can't help but think, though, how hard would it be to AI generate a 2-hour movie and put it into theaters, or sell it to a studio all done, or put it online and say, here's this movie, and everyone's thinking, wow, it's got this great actor in it, let's go check this out, and that actor doesn't get paid, doesn't get any credit because it's not actually him.
I just find it very interesting. So I kind of follow the whole Hollywood thing. The producer of our YouTube channel, he was in Hollywood for a while and worked on Avatar and a few other movies. So we talk about it some, but yeah, Hollywood's being decimated. There's just no work. There's just the whole avatar of their who they are. The AI generated avatar is replacing them. The music industry in Hollywood it's just gone. I mean, people who had extravagant lifestyles from income and the movie music sector are just they're done. And movies are being made in Czechoslovakia and different places around the world now instead of Hollywood. And interestingly enough, the actors never say anything. The actors never push back politically and say anything about it.
Oh, because they're bought and paid for, as
To
my
an
feeling.
extent, but I think a lot of their bought and paid for is dried up. And yet
Mhm.
still they say nothing. So you have to wonder about what is, I mean, actors are intelligent people. They may be script readers, but they're intelligent, they're intelligent people. And to like, who's bought their silence? Who's bought their silence in this?
Well, I do know. I think it was Jack Black who came public
Yeah, he
and
did.
said, I was offered a movie deal and I turned it down, and they came back and said, you can either do it or we will have a computer generation of you
Mhm.
doing it and you won't get paid.
Mhm.
And it's like, so either way, you're doing it. And so
Yeah.
that may be why, they're not saying anything, is
There's
because
a vast ecosystem in Hollywood, distributors, producers, actors, lights, camera. I mean, there's a catering. I mean, there's a massive ecosystem there in Hollywood. And for all of those layers to keep quiet is really it's remarkable to me.
it is. And what amazed me is normally, when there's shadowy elements doing things, they don't really want it like public. But like NCIS LA, they were like showing AI deepfakes, and that they could make phone calls, they could do video conversations,
Mhm.
and you don't realize you're talking to an avatar. You really think
Mhm.
you're talking to
You're
the
talking to a
person.
bot. Yeah. And how many of
And
these only fan girls are bots? Don't pop my bubble. Let me believe. Yeah, I mean, it's invaded all of our life, and now all of a sudden, not only we've yet to go into. Have you heard of the body area network?
not truly, no.
So the body area network is this you were talking about before. Is this electromagnetic field that's around our bodies? So there's a lot of patterns that can interfere with our mind coming in through this body area network that we have: wireless, electromagnetism, Havana syndrome, that sort of thing. Um, so I wrote a book called Exoconscious Humans. When I left working with Edgar and he passed away, I came back to the United States. I've been thinking a lot about AI, about transhumanism, and I was really quite traumatized by it. So we moved back to Phoenix, and we actually made 2 moves here in Phoenix. And when you move, box, put it in the box, unpack the box, put it in the box, unpack the box. It really grounds you in life, like this is real. And I think those moves really helped me ground myself into reality and ground myself into life. And only then was I able to write a book. And I wrote a book called Exoconscious Humans: Will Free Will Survive in an Increasingly Non-Human World? It's all about so I compare what an exoconscious human would be like to what an artificial reality transhuman is, and I make a comparison, and I guess I just feel like I've been in this field for so long, and to see the strength of it is really the strength of transhumanism is quite remarkable. And especially when you factor in things like the body area network. I mean, MK Ultra looks like child's play compared to what's available now and what's doable now.
Yeah, because they even have the technology now. The CIA admitted they used it in Cuba.
Well, that's Havana.
Or Havana, yeah, where they were putting sound to where it's like it was penetrating the mind, and they were going insane because they're hearing these voices, but there's nobody around. And it's like, yeah, and you look at it, and it's like, in my mind, I'm looking at this and going, I'm getting the feeling that they're kind of just like doing this for sport, having fun.
Oh,
Because they're
totally.
like, oh, we can, we're going to mess with these agents over here.
Yeah, experimentation.
Yeah.
They were
And,
experimented on.
yeah. People, I find it so interesting, just turn a blind eye and they're like, oh, well, they're doing it for our safety. I'm like, how is torturing our own people our safety? And I was watching the Disclosure show, and it was on the History Channel. I was like, at first, I was like, this will probably be like you're saying, surface layer, just kind of wishy washy. But they were like, oh, they talked about this one guy, and it was like in the 60s, and he came in with a broken leg, and they injected him with a lot of diseases to see how his body would react to it. And then he broke free of there because they wouldn't fix his broken leg because they knew once you fix a broken leg, he's walking out of here. So he actually walked out with the broken leg and like went to live his life, further on. But now they were finding like there's uranium in his system or plutonium. I don't remember which one it was, but they were like, well, I never gave permission for them to experiment on me. And they go, we didn't need it. They were like, that's what this program was. They just would randomly kidnap people and experiment on them. And there was no permissions asked. And it's like, this is what was been going on. And people will sit there and go, no, they wouldn't do that. And it's like, the evidence is right in front of them. And they still refuse to believe it. And it's like, I look and I go, is there any hope for humanity when you realize these people will blindly accept this?
Yeah.
But then it's like you're saying, there's people like you and me who are like, hey, wake up. This is not normal.
Not what you
And I'm
think it
like,
is.
that's where I think the hope is.
Well, I think also, just seeing reality for what it is. So so I'm a huge advocate of that. Like, see reality for what it is, so you don't get caught up in all the emotional drama of, oh, I've been disappointed, or oh, I've been a failure again. Like, don't get caught up in all those emotional dramas. Just be realistic about what life is today. And the transhumanist AI agenda is built on experimentation, and you will be experimented on, period. You will be the lab rat, period. One of my daughters is a second grade teacher, and we were talking about reading and teaching children how to read. And I said, oh, that sounds like an experiment. She goes, Mom, you don't understand. Education is experiments today. She goes, that's why no one learns anything. It's just one experiment after the next. That is transhumanism. So when you go into that closed loop of AI, which is a closed loop, you will go into becoming a being that is experimented on endlessly, because the experiments never end. And that's the contract you make with AI.
Yeah, and there's also the flip of it is, if you do break free, they surround you with people that mock you and ridicule you and are like, so you feel like I have no credibility to tell anyone what I just went through. So everybody keeps their mouth shut because they're like, I don't want to be ridiculed. I don't want to be mocked. And I don't want to lose my job.
Psychology. A lot of that is, it's built on a lot of behavioral psychology, especially out of Tavistock, that cybernetics and social media was built on the human shame element. So humans have guilt. So guilt means that, I've done something wrong. I've committed an act that's wrong, and I feel guilty about it. I broke up with my boyfriend over a text. I feel guilty about it. That was an act. Shame is, I'm not right inside. I'm not right inside. I'm flawed inside. My insides are flawed. And a lot of social media operates from triggering shame in people, that they won't be accepted, they won't be acknowledged, they'll be invisible and unimportant again. And it triggers that in them. That's why this whole thing of like, make a reel or be visible in social media, that to lead you to believe this thing where, I'm overcoming my shame. I'm an influencer. I'm somebody real important. And then boom, you're gone. You're not, somebody else has replaced you.
Yeah.
So they've got you. So you'll do anything you can to kind of scale back up that mountain to become an influencer. So a lot of it's built on internal shame. It's really quite tragic.
It is tragic. And one thing you talk about in your bio that I think it's something interesting, and I know of the U.S. Constitution, and even that right now it's under attack, and because everybody wants to define it in new ways now, and I'm like, that to me is just bizarre beyond belief, because I'm like, this document is our founding document. It's designed to be adaptable. Why do we need to redefine it? It is what it is. But you talk about a planetary constitution, and I'm wondering, is that kind of a constitution within ourselves with these interdimensional beings and other beings around, like inner Earth or out in the stars?
Well, do you follow the work of Courtney Turner? She does really good work on what you just were discussing about why is the Constitution being taken apart. One of the reasons the Constitution is being taken apart right now is because of transhumanism. So the Constitution is based on sort of the innate goodness and being of a human. that we have these inalienable rights, that we have moral sovereignty, that we can decide that government needs to be minimal and humans need to have the maximum amount of freedom, that that humans have this dignity and deserve this respect. That's the founding of the Constitution. But it's also founded on some kind of, one nation under God type belief system. So in AI, they have to make the human a transhuman, and they have to make the human be artificial, as opposed to a natural human consciousness, a natural human biology. They have to, draw people into wanting to become a technological superior being through technology and through enhancements. So that's why the Constitution is being taken apart right now. And the Constitution really believed in an ensouled human, that we have a soul inside of us. And that's the basis of the equality and the fairness of the Constitution. Well, that's the last thing that the transhumanism wants you to think about. Forget about that. Like, I'm your new soul. Like, you're gonna upload all your data to me and live forever in eternal life. They don't want you to have a soul. So, but in terms of the Planetary Constitution that we put together, that was really a statement based to a great extent on the Constitution of the United States, but also to come out and say that that humans have this innate ability to communicate, to contact, communicate, and co-create with extraterrestrials, multidimensional spiritual beings. So we have this kind of ensouled psychic nature that we all owed. And that as we go into space, or as we make these global decisions, as we especially go into space and encounter these other beings, it might be better off when our visionary governance, our psychic ability begins to guide us in these decisions, as opposed to a machine or the military, or control and domination kind of governance models. So we're saying that ensouled psychic humans have a say in this, and that we are able to communicate with these beings.
I think that's a beautiful thing, and I love how it's, I almost would wonder if you have plans of, since we've done it now, planetary, and we're, looking at growing and becoming, galactic. Is there, do you have plans of possibly in the future going, hey, here's our galactic constitution or intergalactic constitution?
Yeah. Well, we use the word planetary, which is kind of, seems to, indicate. But I also believe that when we talk about experiencers, so I'm sure you have a lot of people on your show that are experiencers. One of the things that we really spend time discussing is, what's our responsibility? So we're natural human consciousness, but we also have a conscience. So we have that little thing on our shoulders that goes, nah, don't do that. Do this. We have this moral sovereign kind of a software inside of us that we know right from wrong. And as we become psychic, that becomes even more important to learn how to use, and to hold yourself to a standard of using that, and not lying and deceiving people, and not leading them into a situation where they're going to become entrapped. So there's a lot more. Humans are going to, we talk about, it's going to be a golden age. We're going to go to a golden age. Well, we might go to a golden age. I'm not saying we're not, but we're also going to go into an age where we're going to call ourselves to a lot more accountability as humans, and on levels that we've probably never thought about calling ourselves to accountability with.
And I kind of look at history and I'm not saying like the 1930s, 40s, 50s were like the age of where we were at our best, but we were in those years, everybody got along, and I know some people are going to say the civil rights movement, wasn't people getting along. But that was in certain areas. In other areas, they did get along, and everybody had a golden rule of what happens in my neighbor's house stays in my neighbor's house. What happens in my house stays in my house. Now we live in a world of, well, let me tell you what my neighbors are doing, even though you don't know what they're doing. You can only say what you're seeing and interpreting, and you're making it public. So now everybody's starting to think, oh my God, you're right, because I can see how you're getting that. And it's like, no. And so where I'm going with this is like, in our education system, there was a class called civics,
I remember.
and that was replaced by social studies, which was then replaced and broken into parts. But I feel like, I'm wondering, was that kind of, deliberately removed so they could create this downfall of the education system? Because if we knew
Probably a political
civics,
agenda. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Probably. There's a writer named Ian Davis, Ian Davis, and he writes a lot about what's called the dark enlightenment that's come out of transhumanism, that's come out of AI, and he's got a new book out about it. He also has a Substack, and Ian Ian really describes the whole movement of, it's been called different things. He calls it dark enlightenment, to move away from. So remember when Doge went in with the Trump administration and went through all the different budgets and started pulling apart things and saying that, this is how it needs to work in a better way, which was probably true. But
right.
so the extreme of that is what's called the dark enlightenment. And that's when humans come to the point when they don't want to govern themselves anymore. So they don't want to be responsible, morally responsible for having an ethical life anymore as a community or as a nation. And they turn all that over to AI, and AI becomes the governor. And that's the dark enlightenment. And that's really what AI would like to accomplish. And that's what will probably be accomplished through the financial means of tokenization, blockchain, stable coins, central bank digital currencies, this programmable money where you're ethically programmed. So when you do something that the algorithm disagrees with, then it will limit your ability to spend money or limit your ability to travel. So that's what's called the dark enlightenment of AI
Right.
algorithms governing you.
Well, and to me, right now, looking at, governing, I don't watch news because I try to stay out of the fear mongering program that they're trying to pass. But I see clips, and when I see clips, and I know I'm basing this just on what's seen, but I kind of do my homework around it. But to me, when we have people that are elected to govern us, and we ask a simple question like to a female congressperson, what is a woman? And they say, I can't define that.
Yeah.
I question, how did you get in office? Because you are a woman. And I look at that and then I'm like, and these people get reelected. I'm like, what is wrong with these cities and these states that are electing these people that can't, have a backbone and say, well, yeah, this is what a woman is.
Well,
That's
if
a
you're trying to
basic
push,
human.
if you're trying to push into the mainstream the acceptance of a transhuman hybridized human, okay, that's been genetically modified, okay? Then the first, so you do it by steps. So step one is, I don't know who I am. I don't know if I'm a man or a woman. That's step one. And step two is, or step three or four, you know, however they roll it out, because it always goes in steps. Experiments roll in steps. Then, you know, eventually you end up with, I'm a hybridized AI human.
Yeah,
And the hybridization programs are up and running and massive. And a lot of it gets laid on to extraterrestrial experiencers, and the extraterrestrials, hybridized us. Well, thank you very much. You know, there's plenty to look at of what humans have done. Let's look at that first. Yeah.
right.
ETs are always the cover story. They're always the cover story for whatever humans are, you know, the shenanigans they're up to. Oh, that was ET did that. ET did that craft. We didn't. ET did that hybridization. We didn't. Well, yeah, you did. You know, Dolly, the cloning of Dolly was back in the 70s. And you know that'd been going on a long time before Dolly finally came out.
Well, and I like to point out, you know, once they announced Dolly, you never heard about it ever again. It was like, and I always say to people, and you think they stopped at the sheep? You really think they
didn't start with the sheep, and they didn't stop at the sheep?
Yeah, it's like, we cloned a sheep. Okay, we're done with cloning. We know we can do it now. It's like, I doubt it.
It's crazy. That's just really good talking to you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for having me on.
Yes, and we have a few minutes left, and so I would like to give you floor space to share about your books and any events that you have coming up or any projects that you want to share with us.
Well, I've already shared a lot of our products,
projects.
But yeah, I have a Substack. I'm pretty active on Substack if you're into that. It's just my name, Rebecca Hardcastle Wright, Substack. I call it Exoconscious Humans. We also have a YouTube channel. It's also called Exoconscious Humans. So easy to track. And there's a lot of, we have a really nice community of experiencers that are part of us. And they're all identified on a website. So my personal website is exoconsciousness.com. It's got all my books and the different projects that I do. And then our community is Exoconscious Humans, all one word, .com. And when you go to Google, sometimes when you write out exoconsciousness, they'll go echo, like ecology, echo consciousness. Yeah. So just remember there's an X in there. And so that highlights our community. That also has a library of some of the books that people are publishing on it. We call it Exo Library. And then we also have the community of people that participate in our programs, and anyone's more than welcome to join. And then we also have a plasma collective of people that are a part of the plasma class that are on there. So it's exciting times.
It is. And I just, just for everyone, because we ratted off a lot of those links pretty quick, that majority of them are in the description. And if I find any are missing, I will add it where I can. But I think one that is missing is your website. I think you gave me all your socials, but not the website. So do you want to give that one again, and I can put it up?
That's just exoconsciousness.com. So the word exoconsciousness that we've been talking about, it's just that word, exoconsciousness.com, EXOCONSCIOUSNESS.com.
I almost spelled it wrong. I forgot the ness. So let me grab it real quick. There we go. Put it up there.
Yeah, exoconsciousness.com. Yeah.
So thank you for coming on and sharing.
Thank you. It's really been delightful to meet you, Michael. Good luck.
Yes.
There's you might want to go on our Exoconscious Humans website. So there'll be a link on my exoconsciousness.com. There's a link to the Exoconscious Humans community, and look through there because there might be people on there that you might want to bring in for your shows.
Okay. And I'll put a link up in case anybody watching this has the same idea and wants to meet up. I think I got it right. Exoconscious Humans.
Yeah, .com. Yeah, that's got all the. There's probably 20 people in there that are all, very well informed about as experiencers and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and actually, what was kind of funny is when we were, talking before about putting EXO in front of a lot of things.
Yeah.
When we were talking about your Planetary Constitution, I was like, you could, if you wanted to make it real easy and more cover, off-world as well, you could just put EXO in front of it.
Yeah, exoplanetary. Oh, that's a good idea. Thank you. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, I did that with 3 other women, so I need to roll that by them. I wasn't the only creator of that, actually.
Well, I gotta say thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Yes, and I do have a message for you, and that is from my heart and the heart of my shows to you. Thank you for what you're doing for humanity. It's seen, felt, heard, and so needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks, Michael.
And so, everyone, be sure to follow her, and you can find most of her social links and the ones that I didn't have, I put on screen. So follow along because you never know when she'll make another appearance here on the show.
Yeah,
so be sure to like and follow along my channel as well. And with that, I am going to say goodnight to everyone. Thank you again, and blessings to everyone. And for my audience, just a friendly reminder, tomorrow I do have 2 special episodes. Normally I don't do shows past Wednesday, but I got 2 tomorrow, so make sure you tune in. One's at 2 o'clock, and the other one's at 8 o'clock, and I'm in Central Time, so remember that. And with that, I'm going to say good night to everyone. Have a wonderful night, and blessings to you all. Good night.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.